You might have heard, but I am not an expert in agentic AI. And neither is Giuseppe, absolutely censored. But you know who is an expert? This guy.
Really smart guy named Daniel.
I want you to hear from Daniel while he breaks down the differences between agentic AI and traditional software, how agentic AI does not equal your basic LLM, even if they just slap one on there. And I'm gonna have Daniel cut through all the hype and get to the brass tacks of why this generation of AI agents is gonna hit different. All right, Daniel, take it away.
AI agents. There's a lot of marketing. There's a lot of hype. There's a lot going on. We've probably all heard that, and we will continue to hear that throughout the rest of 2025. And so we wanted to spend a couple of minutes of just at least grounding ourselves. The objective is to learn together and to come away with something new that we can bring back to our organizations or own for ourselves internally. And so we're going to do three things. We're going to talk about WTF is an AI agent. We're going to understand why is everybody talking about them and what's in it for me? Why should I really care? Why should I pay attention? So AI agents are not traditional software. When we think of traditional software, we think of a lot of code, right? We have to define every edge case. We've defined all of the goals in advance. We've defined all of the outcomes in advance. All of that code that we designed was designed to efficiently get to the outcome that is always known in advance. What are we doing? We're writing code. We're not like instructing something. And the last thing is, if anybody here has tried to implement software at any company, I have a pretty strong suspicion that if you then try to change that software in 3 months, 6 months time, you go to IT, you have to prioritize a project, something tells me it's a little bit more than challenging. And that's because they're not really flexible. If we think about what an AI agent is, it is none of those things. And that's what makes them very unlike traditional software. AI agents look like the beginnings of the LLMs that we're all starting to familiarize ourselves with, like ChatGPT and Claude, but they do a few things that are unique. We define them as four things in particular. They plan, they research, they act, and they critique. Some people use different words. They say, they don't critique, they learn. True. All of those things can be the same. But the thing that makes an AI agent unique is that they're kind of like the goal seek function in Excel. For anybody who's used Excel before, you know that the goal seek function is all about an outcome and how are all the variables that I can optimize in order to get to that outcome. That makes them super powerful, means that we can interact with them with natural language, but it also makes them very uncertain and in some cases dangerous. You need to have good guardrails. You need to have good escalations. You got to audit what they're doing and make sure that they're like performing. And so to call these things traditional software, which is where a lot of like, let's be honest, the marketing hype is right now, is kind of minimizing the impact that I think we're going to see with a lot of these really powerful software components that are going to come online very soon. We still have a bunch of slap-on LLMs that kind of look like agents, but this is still not the agentic description that I used in that last slide. So on the far left, we have a lot of things that put an LLM into something. There's the input, you have the process, you have the output. The LLMs are still not agents because they have to collaborate across systems and we need to trust them. They need an architecture on who to communicate with and how. Got to have that thing on Rails. And they need to work across the apps. It's not enough to just say, oh, the LLM works within my product. What happens when these agents are using LLMs across products, from Word to your CRM to DocuSign to Circle CI to HireRight? There's so many apps that we need to chain together, and that's the future of where a lot of agents are moving towards. We also know that performance isn't guaranteed. There's a lot of oversight required on these. So the agents that you see on the far right of the screen are ones that are perceiving and sensing their environment. They're optimizing, and every time that they run into an issue, they need to pull in a human being. And so we are probably all in the case of not wanting to relinquish too much control until we can see them working. We can feel like we have a lot of confidence in their outcomes and their outputs driving for those outcomes. Say is that, hey, this cycle's got a lot of hype in it. Is there anything different going on right now? Are they smart? Sometimes not quite so much, but they're very good at reasoning. 99 out of 100 times, I bet, these things reason better than most human beings. And there's a lot of money flowing into this space too on agents. It's probably why we hear so much about it. It's hard to ignore that investment. A lot of these companies will go kaboom. Some of these companies will go giant, but we're going to solve some really interesting problems. And that is what I think is so exciting about a session like this, is where we get to talk about those problems and be honest about where they're good and where they're bad. The last thing I'll say is that the tough market that we are currently in is probably going to be the new norm. When we think about why agents, well, we're seeing the expectations in many of our orgs go up. We're seeing the resources stay flat. and headcount might stay flat or even go down in many cases. And so the way to survive is more productivity. And when we have more opportunities to invest to drive that productivity, I think for a lot of us, we're feeling this is kind of like our way to keep our head above water. So I will close with the last slides that you'll have to see from me on the next one and say, this is about learning. We are at the very beginning of this cycle. We are in the experimentation phase. We came here to learn together and to shape our understandings collectively of how agents are going to be good, how they're not going to be so good. And that's the purpose, is to learn together.
I told you, Daniel's really smart. Stay tuned for our next episode where we invited a bunch of InfoSec and customer trust and security experts to come in and talk about how they are interacting with AI in their current day-to-day and what they're preparing for the future. Don't miss it.